got to be all on board, right? The Richmond community and from the top down is on board, and now you're seeing the results in both teams.
Absolutely. Retention is the word that comes to mind. This is a program, team, school that has done a great job with retention, getting players to come back, especially for the women's basketball side. Addie Budnick, Maddie Doogan, Rachel Olstrom would have been perfect Power 5 transfers at this level if they had decided to leave. Instead, they come back and play for Aaron for another year and are trying to repeat as champs. Preseason pick number 1, won it last year. There's a huge target on their back, but they've got the players to back it up.
Here's Coach now. We'll hear from him with the media, then we'll come back and talk to him live here from the studio after this.
Yeah, I think really excited about the roster that we have coming back. I think obviously a lot of changes across all levels of basketball, but I think very happy with the players that we do have coming back. Addie Budnick coming back, first team all-conference player, same here with Maggie Doogan and with Rachel Olstrom. I feel like we have a lot of firepower coming back. I think we've been a young team for so long in this league, and actually last year we're finally a little bit older. And then this year, somehow, I think we got even older. We've got 6 grad transfers on our roster this year. So not all of them played with us, but I do feel like we have a lot of returning experience. And even some of the ones that are not returning to us have a lot of college basketball experience, which I think will be a positive. I think no coach wants to be young, and I think we were able to stay old, as they say, and I think also remain very talented as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Coach. We'll go ahead and open up for questions.
Chris Powell, Couch Coach Live. Good afternoon, Coach and Maggie. The Spain trip, what did you learn about that trip as far as your personnel, your team? What's the biggest thing you learned?
Yeah, I think the biggest part from a basketball standpoint was really some of the extra practices that we had on campus before we left. There's obviously felt like we had a very good roster, but felt like there had to be some meshing going on. And so we've probably found whatever 10 practices that we are in right now, even though we have a lot of new players, I think we have a lot of things, quote, installed already because of those practices. When we were in Spain, I'm not sure how much basketball was the focus. It really was the culture and kind of getting our kids to have that experience over there. There wasn't a lot of basketball. We did play a few games over there. I think those went well. It was nice for those guys to have the Richmond uniform on, to play together. They weren't all blowouts. There was some tough basketball over there. But really, I think the time spent together in those 5-6 weeks that we were on campus, I think was vitally important. I think when you play the way that we do and kind of have to have a feel for the game, a feel for each other, that getting to know you acclimation process was maybe fast forwarded a little bit this summer. And I think we are seeing some of those benefits, at least offensively right now, and realizing we do have some firepower out there.
Noah Greenberg. Last year, as you build, even if you weren't a national buzz in the early months, there was a quiet buzz going on from people that had seen you that, people would say, hey, I'll tell you, really look good. We were here and whatever. And then, of course, you came in, you beat Joe's early, and then you were able to stay in front and do it. But sometimes the builder part becomes the easier part. Now, you're the preseason pick and all. How much of a challenge of being the target is this time around?
I'm jealous of people that aren't picked first, don't get me wrong, but I also like our roster and realize there's probably a reason that we were picked first, Mel. Is it easier to hunt than to be the hunted? Maybe, but I think we've really taken the approach that was last year. We are not defending anything. We've got the T-shirts, we got the banner, we've got the rings. That was last year's accomplishment with last year's team. This is a new team. We do have a lot of new players coming in, and even those experienced players, I think, have a little hunger to them because they do see the fruits of the labor and the value of the time that they put in. So we've kind of taken the approach that we're all hunting right now. This is not our trophy. This is not our tournament. None of that is. We are just like the other 14 teams out there. We're all hunting the same thing. And I think the experience that we got from winning last year will drive this group. But I put ourselves into the hunter equation as well.
Any additional questions? Oh, got another one.
Well, this Maggie, because, a lot of times when you came in to play Philly a couple times, I'm not going to say equal, but there was a Caitlin Clark effect every time she came in. How much enjoyable it is that, you end up picking a school that you can still do a lot of home visits as you play during the season.
Yeah, that was definitely something that I wanted when I was looking at colleges in high school. I wanted to be able to, play in front of my family and have family come to some of my home games. So I feel like Richmond was a good spot. 4 hours down 95 and 2 beds. So they make the drive. But yeah, playing Philly schools is something that I definitely wanted. And yeah, my friends come all the time. My family comes, and yeah, it's great.
And I'll jump in here for a second. If you both could address this, just talk a little bit about the competitiveness of this league and really what makes this league special and really a grind, night in and night out.
Yeah, obviously, winning the league last year, feels great. But I think we can all look back to more than a handful of those games last year that could have gone either way, and I think we were fortunate to kind of string some of those together early, maybe gave us some confidence, but also not completely naive to the fact that that season could have gone a lot differently. I thought we played very, very well at the end of the season, and hopefully the tournament goes the same. But to get 16 wins in that league last year, I think is one heck of an accomplishment. I think people talk about Power Four and what all that stuff means right now, but if you look at the A10, it was one of the best basketball leagues in the country last year, and obviously we were able to have a little bit of success in the tournament, if you want to call it that, but there was a lot of other teams on the national level that also made some good runs. And, just like everything, right? When you got a little bit of taste of it, and I think people are scheduling at a really high level right now. There's really, really experienced and qualified coaches in our league. I think the talent has gotten better. All of a sudden, it maybe isn't about the defections from this league, but it's about the new players coming into it. I have no reason to think that this won't be an even better league this upcoming season.
I feel like every conference game that we have is a new battle every night. You have tough matchups almost every game, and yeah, you have to prep differently, honestly, because a lot of the teams play different styles. So you're definitely learning something offensively and defensively every game, and you're just constantly getting better and finding new ways to, be innovative and keep the defense on their toes with your offense. So yeah.
Perfect. Coach Roussell and Maggie, I'd like to thank you both for joining us, and best of luck this season.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Appreciate it.
We will talk more with Coach Roussell in just a moment here. Let's recap what we just kind of heard from those two. Ice.
Yeah, a lot of players returning, right? We talked about that word retention. They have 3 of their main players returning that are received all preseason honors. But for me, it still leaves the question mark, and I'm interested to talk to Coach about the leadership, right? One of the reasons they were so successful last year is because of their point guard and Grace Townsend. And so she did not return, yet you received 3 other pieces, A10 6 Woman of the Year and Rachel Olstrom, who probably now is moving into a starting position. But how do you fill that leadership void? You being the #1 seed, preseason #1 pick. Coach, it's a lot on your back. You got a ton of targets. How do you maintain that?
Yep, well, you can ask him because he's ready to join us right now. Coach Roussell, thanks so much for being here. Congrats on the unbelievable finish last year in the Atlantic 10 Championship regular season tournament title, first since 1991. I just want to say I thought, the job you've done over the years because of the increasingly changing landscape in college basketball. We said it, you go from 13 wins to 16 to 21 to 29. Tell us about that stretch. I mean, we saw what happened last year, but tell us about that stretch to get to that point, and what you've done collectively over the years to build this program.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And first off, thank you. It has been a build. I think we, sold a vision to a group of players that really did buy in. And so when you look back at what did happen last year, it was a great season. I think it was very special, especially at the end, how well our players clicked, how well they played together. But that was the culmination of a lot of those players getting a lot of experience and playing a lot as freshmen, as sophomores. And so we had kind of been that young team during that growth period. And then all of a sudden last year, kind of the plan was we were going to kind of be the old team, and then COVID kind of threw a little bit of a wrinkle in there that other teams were also old. But then you project that into this coming season, and somehow we were the old team last year that got even older this upcoming season. So I think that will give us a little bit of a bridge and hopefully propel us into this season as well.
Coach, obviously there's a huge target on your back, winning the A-10 last year, preseason pick #1, and getting a lot of your production back. My first question is what I just said a couple minutes ago. From a leadership standpoint, where do you go without the point guard in Grace Townsend that did a phenomenal job for you guys last year? Who takes over that role?
Well, I think from a leadership standpoint, all of a sudden, you look at our roster and look at, the coach sitting here right now, and you get Addie Budnick back, right? And so all of a sudden, you have a fifth-year player that's been a captain probably 3 or 4 of those seasons. So I think it kind of starts there. Anna Camden last year, unfortunately had an injury and really thought that was going to kind of change our roster, change our team. Fortunate enough to still have some success last year, and then, oh, by the way, we get her back this year. Katie Hill has been a 3-year program or a 3-year player in our league, and really a 3-year starter for us. And so I think those 3 kind of starts there. And then, you look at our juniors between Maggie, Doogan, and Rachel Ulstrom. Those guys are pretty accomplished and have had a lot of experience in our system. And then I think unique for us this year that, you look at the newcomers that we have, the additions that we have, this isn't a typical like, hey, these are freshmen coming in and trying to make an impact. I do think we have some freshmen that will help us, but all of a sudden your newcomers are Faith Alston, who was a 4-year starter at the point guard spot, top 50 scorer in the country. Steph at JMU played in an NCAA tournament. Allie Jimenez, she's played at a high level, and so I think the leadership, yes, with me is different, but I think we've had a lot of experienced players in college basketball that I think will bridge that gap, even at the point guard position.
Coach, last question for you. What do you say to other coaches who maybe always think that they have to get their start in coaching at the Division I level? You were very successful D3, University of Chicago, and then kind of built your way up, Bucknell, now Richmond. What do you say about maybe starting out at lower levels and then being able to build?
I wanted nothing to do with the start that I had. I felt very unfortunate that kind of got thrown into that head coaching position at 24, 25. I was always very jealous that didn't get to be that apprentice and kind of be that assistant. But I think one of absolutely the major thing it did is kind of put you in charge and gave you that game experience, gave you that head coaching leadership experience. And, there's different ways to get to these points, don't get me wrong, but man, I really do try to impress that upon a lot of coaches out there that don't feel like you have to keep being at a certain level. I think getting to make mistakes when the spotlight isn't on you at quote, the lower levels, I think was vital to my development, my mistakes and growth as a coach. I couldn't be more fortunate. I'm not sure if I wanted that the way it did work out. But here 20 years into it, I couldn't say enough about being at the Division III level, being at Bucknell, and then now at Richmond. Just very grateful for how it has worked out.
Coach, appreciate everything you've said and your time today. Wishing you all the best this upcoming season. We'll see you down the line.